Hi guys, it's Pitima Tongme. I'm the author of Unstoppable You, 9 Breakthrough Strategies to Living the Life of Your Dreams. You probably found the link to this audio or video in my book as your reward for not settling for less than what you desire and deserve. Now, you are going to learn a very powerful insight from my friend Greg Johnson. Greg is the NASA astronaut who piloted the second and the last space shuttle Endeavour to space. Before we listen to his insights, let's have a look at him in space. I met Greg at the High Achievers Gala. Hi Greg, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
When did you dream about going into space?
I was 7 years old at my grandparents' house, watching Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walk on the moon. I was with my brother and sister, I was with my mom and dad, and at the age of 7, I had the dream of becoming an astronaut. As it turned out, I really did love flying airplanes, and then ultimately I loved flying the space shuttle.
Why do you love flying a space shuttle?
Because it's doing something unusual and different. It's a different world. Flying airplanes, you're up in the atmosphere, you're away from the Earth, you're maneuvering and doing and seeing very interesting things. And space is an extension of that. And so being on the space station and seeing our beautiful planet and understanding of our universe is really interesting.
Who was your role model and why?
Well, Neil Armstrong was my very first role model. John Glenn, the early astronauts. Charlie Bolden, for example, he's the NASA administrator. When he was a pilot, I talked to him about 20 years ago, and he's the one that really got me motivated to becoming an astronaut.
What was the best advice that he gave you?
He said, go to test pilot school and do very well. And so that's what I did. I worked really hard at test pilot school and then took it from there. Being a test pilot was wonderful. Being a test pilot was exciting, and it also gave me some skills that helped me be eligible to become an astronaut.
What made you feel most fulfilled and why?
I like to do my best in everything that I do. I like to be efficient with my time. I like to try to understand logically and analytically what it is that I'm trying to do, and then I want to go after that and do that.
What are your core values and why?
It's really important to me to do the best that I can in every situation, to maximize every situation, regardless of what it is, because we have very limited time on this earth, and every moment that goes by is a moment that's past us. So I want to use those moments.
What was your biggest doubt about going into space, and how did you overcome it?
I really didn't think that I was going to get selected, because there were 3,000 people that were applying for my astronaut class, and they picked 24 of us. I looked at the people that I interviewed with, and I thought that many of them were better than I was. And so I actually picked 5 people of the 20 that interviewed in my final interview class, and none of those 5 got picked, and another 9 of us did get. At that point, it gave me confidence. It also gave me understanding that as we go through life, it's about creating opportunities, but then you have to get a little bit lucky. And I've always been very lucky. I wanted to use that luck to my advantage. As I've progressed through my career, I remember that there's a whole bunch of people behind me that would love to be an astronaut, so I'm going to make sure that I maximize my experience.
You just said you thought you are not gonna get picked, but you applied anyway.
I did apply, because if you don't try, you'll never succeed.
Guys, don't let anything or anyone, especially you, stopping you from achieving your dreams.
Somebody's got to do it.
How did you plan to get into space?
The plan started maybe when I was 30 years old, and the notion was to be the best pilot I could be the best test pilot I could be.
What action that you took was the most important to achieving going into space?
The most important action that anybody could do, trying to do anything, is to do what they love. Because if you do what you love, you'll do it very well. If you don't do something that you love, and you're doing something that somebody else thinks that you have to do, you're not going to do it as well as if you do something that you love.
What was your biggest challenge in space, and how do you overcome it?
One of my biggest challenges was dealing with the STS-1 134 crew when Mark Kelly's wife was shot. Mark Kelly was our commander. I was Mark's pilot, so I was kind of the second in the succession. So when Mark went to deal with his personal emergency, the 5 of us had to keep going, and it was a great leadership challenge for me. And also trying to work with a new potential commander, a different guy who came into our crew, and it was a challenge to conform our crew to his leadership style. It actually turned out we learned much from him, but Mark came back and then he finished the mission.
What was the most important lesson that he taught you?
What he taught me was that it doesn't matter what your personality is, you can work with anybody. The important thing is to understand where that person is coming from and understand what makes them the way that they are. His leadership style was much different than Mark's, and as soon as our crew realized that understanding him and him understanding us enabled us to work together. If you listen to the people that have done what you're trying to do, they have lots of lessons to be learned. And sometimes you might listen to what they say, you might not initially believe it. And you don't have to believe it, but you should listen to it. And you should try to understand it. You should try to understand why they believe that way and take the nugget out of that and make yourself a better person. By paying attention to people that had been astronauts and they'd been there, done that, they had many lessons for me to learn.
So, you have been talking to many astronauts before going to space,
Absolutely, but I still wasn't ready for the feeling of launch.
Were you nervous when you were launching the space shuttle?
I think that any human being is a little bit nervous when you're about ready to blast off in a rocket. I was aware of the risks. It felt a lot to me like my first combat mission when I flew the F-15 in combat. I didn't really know what it was going to be like. I trained, I was ready, I was confident, but I was a little bit intimidated because I didn't know what was on the other side. And after I lift off, I really realized that I had no idea what it was going to be like to launch into space. It was a shock.
From being shocked, how did you go back into normal state?
The way you do it is you focus on your mission, getting to work, because we'd done this in the simulator many, many times. And so I knew what my job was, and we practiced it, and I had to execute it.
What would be your advice on being more confident?
I think realizing that everything in the world has to get done. Things have to be done by somebody, and you can be that person. So if you want to make $1 million, there are people that make $1 million, and you can be confident to know that you could be one of them. It doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter if you're male, female. It doesn't matter what race you are or what your beliefs are in your culture. You can succeed, but you have to try.
What was the best simulator that helped prepare you for your mission, and why?
The robotic arm we used to install objects onto the space station. When I was actually doing it in space, I felt like I'd done it many, many times before because of virtual reality type training.
What was the main benefit of virtual reality training that you did before your mission in space?
Because it's a very complex task and we don't want to waste a lot of time, so it's really important to learn all the aspects that you can of that activity before you actually do it in space. It's about being efficient. It's about maximizing the moment. It's about doing things right, and that's one of my core values, is doing the best that you can do. When you accomplish something in simulation, that gives you confidence for you to do it in real life.
What did you visualize before going into space?
If you have a dream and you visualize yourself doing it, you actually increase the chances that you might do it. When I was 7 years old, I visualized in my mind what it would be like to walk on the moon. I visualized what it would be like to be an astronaut and the excitement that I'd be feeling and generating being an astronaut. When you look at the end goal and you visualize yourself, that actually might help you navigate to get there.
What was the best way to visualize things?
Pilots do something that's called chair flying, and that is you go through all the procedures in your mind, you think it through, and by thinking through, you're actually getting kind of practice, and you're preparing your mind to learn. Becoming a pilot, it was important to chair fly. As an astronaut, it was important to think through the things that you're going to be thinking about. So visualizing to me is thinking about it, concentrating about it, not being distracted. So anywhere that there's quiet and I could focus on what I'm thinking about, that you can visualize it while you're laying in bed. It's more about getting yourself in a mindset that you can concentrate on what you're thinking about and not be distracted by outside.
How often do you visualize it?
I do it all the time, and I still visualize what I'm about to do, whatever that might be. If it's going to be a speech, if it's going to be a trip, I always visualize. I think about what it is that the activity that I'm going to undertake, and that actually helps me plan it better, and I think it helps me execute it better.
What would be your advice to people who do not settle, want to be unstoppable, and live the life of their ultimate dreams with the ultimate joys and fulfillment in their life?
I think the key is you have to go for it. If you don't go for it, you will have no chance. So you have to go for it. So whatever it is you want to do, make sure it's something that you really want to do and that you love it, and then go for it.
If the fear about doing things, how would you suggest them to overcome that fear?
The way to overcome fear is to get focused on what you're trying to do. If you're afraid of heavy traffic and you worry about it, that's not going to help you. It's focusing on what is it about this traffic that is scaring me, and what am I going to do about it to fix it? I need to pick a different route. The key is do something about it and then go for it.
From a 7-year-old boy dreaming about going into space, to the award-winning astronaut who flew a space shuttle to space twice. What do you think about your achievements, and how do you feel?
It makes me very happy. I waited a long time to fly in space, even after I was selected. It was almost 10 years. The key is just keep going after it. I'm excited that I got to do something that I'd always dreamed that I could do.
Thank you very much, Craig, for your insights.
Well, you're very welcome.
Guys, now it's your turn to make all your dreams come true. Have confidence and believe in yourself. No matter what it is, believe that you can do it. We believe in you.
Be phenomenal and live your dreams.
I love you. We had a lot of fun filming. Come back for the video version. Here's the preview. I know you are going to enjoy it.
When you decided that you wanted to write this book, there was a spark in you. Something that it was a mission to go do something that you loved. At the age of 7, I had the dream of becoming an astronaut. After I lift off, I really realized that I had no idea what it was going to be like to launch into space, so it was a shock.